Hey, once again I'm back, talking about the Odyssey, uh, and we're in the smoke room, so I'm gonna have me a cigar while we talk. So, last time we left off, Circe instructs Odysseus that he has to go to Hades, alright, the Underworld, to go find the blind seer Tiresias. And if you remember Tiresias, if you've been watching my channel, I started this whole channel just sort of retelling Greek tragedies. And Tiresias is a kind of a big character in a lot of Greek tragedies. He's in the Bacchae, he's in Oedipus, and a bunch of other ones. And he's the kind of the oracle in a big way. Now, him being blind, I think is quite symbolic, because he's blind to his physical, his eyes are gone, yet he's called a blind seer. So his vision, his sight, is not an outward sight, it's an inward sight. And so he's knowledgeable of the soul, and he's a sort of an oracle, you would say. And Tiresias is a hermaphrodite. He was turned into a woman for a number of years and lived life as a woman, and then was turned back into a man. So he started off as a man, got turned into a woman, and then turned back into a man. So he has his finger on the pulse of both masculine and feminine energy, and the masculine psyche and the feminine psyche. And you'll notice when you read book 11 that who is he talking with? First he talks with women, and then he talks to men. So I think that these two are connected. He talks to Tiresias, then he talks to women, then he talks to men. Okay? So he goes in, and Tiresias tells him, look, you're going to have to go from here, you're going to have to go to the land of this island where Helios's cattle graze. Now, Helios is the god, which is the sun. Okay, so when Helios goes up and rides across the sky and shines his light down and makes everything intelligible, and you're able to have knowledge about things because of the sun, right? He really likes looking down at those cattle. They're immortal, actually. The cattle are immortal. So, which they're going to end up killing the cows and eating them because they're hungry and they're shipwrecked, and all they have to eat is fish. And everybody knows that fish sucks eating fish for a long amount of time, I guess. I don't know. I can tell you, as a native resident of Kansas, I'm about as far inland as you can be, and the seafood here is not great. So, eating fish for an extended period of time, for me, certainly sucks, but I've heard that it can be quite good if you're eating locally, eating fish that somebody freshly caught and that hasn't been shipped over state lines and it's been on ice for a long time. But that's neither here nor there. they're gonna kill Helios's cattle, and Helios is he's gonna be coming up, and he's like, "Oh, son of a," like I liked those things. I really like looking at those cattle. But Tiresias foretells that if they were, if Odysseus or his men eat the cattle, they're not going to have a safe journey home. Actually, his men are going to all die because of that mistake. That's what he gets from Tiresias. So Tiresias tells him that, but let me back up. Before he talks to Tiresias, they make it to this island, and they have to sacrifice these goats, I believe. There's a white goat and a black goat, I think, and which are supplied by Circe. So they kill these goats and they create this cube of like earth that they dig out. And they said it's a cubit by a cubit. A cubit is roughly this length. Okay, so it's a cubit by a cubit square. Then they fill it up with this blood. And on this island, it's always dark. It's never light. Okay, so they're in darkness. Okay. So they do this sort of ritual, this sacrifice. They have the blood in the square. And these spirits come to drink of the blood. This goes back, this is a deep take that I've been learning through Porphyry, would be that in Greek and presumably other cultures as well, disembodied spirits or souls, not even just disembodied spirits, but souls themselves are attracted to moisture, to water. Now, within the Platonic framework, souls are these eternal things which exist, and they're kind of up in the realm of the form or of intelligibility in the nous, I suppose. Nous meaning in Greek intelligence or mind. I've been going crazy writing or drawing this diagram, but look closely here. This is the Platonic or the Neoplatonic diagram. This is the one. This is God. He transcends existence and emanates his good. He's the form of the good as well, but saying that he's calling the one the good is our knowledge of what good is insufficient to describe what the one is. But the one, the good, emanates down his sort of essence or whatever into the nous, which is this intelligibility, this mind, God, the mind of God, in a way. And the nous, the mind, emanates down to souls. Okay, so souls are in they're presumably not in a physical place, okay? They're in another, I don't want to say dimension because you're going to think about Marvel. Don't think about Marvel and dimensions. That's a bunch of horse crap nonsense, all right? Think about the form of the good instead. So then then souls emanate down into the physical world, reality, down here. You see that? Oh, I'm about to fall over. Okay? And that's where souls become embodied. Okay? So, but they're attracted to moisture, to water. And there's some sort of, but ultimately within the Platonic framework is this process of emanation down. Ultimately, if a soul is good, And if they want the right things, they're going to come down here, but then their main goal is to regenerate up. And that's what's going on in the Odyssey, which is what this big graph is about. And this is about the journey to Troy. I'll tell you about this sometime, but we'll see if I can hold myself back from talking about it for now, because I'm still working it out. But these souls, the wise ones, Heraclitus, or I believe it was Heraclitus, could be wrong, says that the wise souls want to stay dry. So they don't become embodied, because they want to stay up here, right? In union with Nous and the One. So, a soul which seeks moisture is one that's seeking matter. Okay, it's seeking to come down here into the cave. It's a descent into the cave. If you can picture Plato's cave analogy, it's a descent down into that. And water represents chaotic matter in the world of becoming. It represents changeability, especially like the ocean. Think about the chaos of the ocean and things constantly sort of changing, or the river that Heraclitus talks about, whether you can't step in twice. So the soul that is disordered or falling down from the good is going to end up down here in becoming. So it starts off from static, knowable, intelligible, down to substance, matter, becoming. So in rituals where people are trying to summon spirits, they would use blood and bile, I'm told. So they would have, that's why you have blood sacrifices and crazy stuff like that. It's because they're trying to bring a soul down to the moisture, right? It's also symbolic with the nymphs. I've been reading this book by Porphyry on, we haven't got to this in the Iliad yet, but book 14, I believe, 13 or 14. No, it actually might be book 12. Book 12 no, it would be 13. Okay, I'm sorry. Book 13, when Odysseus makes it home to Ithaca. He's asleep. He's being transported by the Phaeacians back to Ithaca. And there's described a cave. It's like a couple of lines. And this cave, right? If you're thinking platonically, you should be like, woo, getting a little flag in your brain. Oh, there's a cave. And there's two entrances to this cave. One from the north and one from the south. And it describes it as being this place where these nymphs, like water runs through it. There's these nymphs that weave tapestries on these like stone looms, and there are bulls with honey and stuff like that, you know. And all of that is very symbolic. And this book is like that I'm reading, sort of decrypting this by Porphyry, is explaining what all that stuff means. I'll give you a little hint. The cave represents the world of sense. It represents this world of appearances and being, the world that we live in. Okay? And there's two entrances. One from the north wind coming in, descending, he even says, descending in from the north side is where humans, mortals, come in. And then there's one that goes through from the south, coming from the north, which is where immortals go through. So this is some really interesting stuff here, guys, but we're not going to get into that yet. But these nymphs always are in and around water. The nymphs like the water. They're representative of souls that are that come down and merge themselves with moisture and are then embodied. And you have ghosts, right? Which have these sort of like images, these sort of forms that are not quite human. They don't have, but they're somewhat merged with material, with matter, and that's through a sort of cloud of mist, right? And that's actually what Odysseus is going to see down in Hades. So they come and they drink of the blood, and then he talks to Tiresias. Tiresias tells him, "Don't eat Helios's cattle." He says, "All right, I'll do my best. I'll keep my guys from doing that." The next person that he's going to talk to is his mom. His mom, what's her name? Anticlea. Anticlea? I always have a tough time pronouncing these names. The name means against fame, or against glory, or without fame. And when Odysseus left to go to Troy, originally his mom was alive, so he's quite surprised when he comes to the underworld and sees his own mother there, and he's a very emotional kind of moment here, which is understandable because he didn't know his mom was dead. He's been gone for so many years. And it turns out that his mom died from him being away, from sort of like heart sickness in a way. She dies because Odysseus went down to Troy to get fame. So her name means something there, against fame. And that's that's kind of a feminine aspect, right, of this not so ambitious, seeking to be like a Greek hero, like in their culture. Women, that's not for women to be doing that type of thing. It's a masculine urge, not a feminine urge. So then he talks to a bunch of other ladies, a bunch of other queens and women that gods have like produced demigods through, and all these interesting ladies. And he says, "I talked to all these women," and then so after he describes all these famous women that he's talked to, he tells Alcinous, the king of Phaeacia, because he's in Phaeacia recounting all of this. He says, "All right, now it's time to go to bed. I'm tired." And they're like, "Well, that's it? That's all you're going to tell us? Like, there's got to be more to the story." And Odysseus is like, "It's true." And he's like, "Come on, man, the night's young. Like, keep going. Like, we're really interested. Everybody's listening right now. This is really great. This is really entertaining. We want to hear this whole story." He says something kind of funny. Odysseus is like, "Well, there's a time for telling stories and there's a time for sleeping. But since you really want me to keep telling this story, I guess I'll keep going." So then he gets into talking about the guys that he met and some of the other stuff that he sees in the underworld. And he sees, firstly, Agamemnon. And he's like, "Agamemnon, what are you doing here, man? I thought, they've been split up because last time they saw each other, they were in Troy." And Agamemnon tells him what happens, which, if you want to know what happens, you should already know what happens by reading the Odyssey, but you could also, if you want to know more, go read the Oresteia, and that'll get into it as well. There's a little squirrel out there. He heard me. He's got a little acorn. He's storing away for impending winter. Oh, he dropped it. What are you doing, man? Anyway, so Agamemnon's like, look, my bitch wife killed me. I can't believe it. I can't believe that she's so bad. She's so bad that she gives a bad name to all generation of women after her. So all women are bad, according to Agamemnon. And Odysseus is like, man, that's rough, dude. Like, now that I think of it, the entire line of Atreus has been kind of cursed. I believe it's Atreus, yeah. Agamemnon's line, Agamemnon and Menelaus, they're the Atrides. So they're from the line of Atreus. It's like, you guys are always getting in trouble with women. Like, that's too bad, man. You're getting always being led down a bad path by women. You guys got bad luck with the ladies. Because remember, the entire reason they went down to Troy was because of Helen. Which leads me, I can't keep myself from explaining this top graph here. So, the Greeks, let me just position myself so I can show you. These are the Greeks. These are the Greeks value themselves as being very intellectual. They're philosophical people. Everybody else is kind of barbaric. They're barbarians, right? So, this is the mind. This is the intellect. This is the nous right here. They're going to be searching for beauty, the beautiful, which is Helen. Helen is the most beautiful woman, and she is led by Aphrodite. Aphrodite represents beauty, okay, the form, the beautiful. Okay, so intellect, thinking about the intellect here, this is a non-material thing, goes to Troy. And if you, there's a interesting fellow that was talking about this. What was his name? It's like Manly Hall or something like that. He's a very interesting guy. He's got really good lectures, if you guys go check him out on YouTube, about Neoplatonism, which are really, really good. I recommend you check this out. He says that Troy is a word that comes from Ilus, and Ilus means slime. That's what he says. That's what this Manly Hall guy says. I fact-checked him, not really true. They say that it doesn't, from what I was able to find, which was on Google, okay, I was not able to find anything that would directly confirm that Ilus means slime. They say that it's just the name of a guy who founds Ilia, which is Troy. But it represents, let's just say, for the sake of argument, it represents matter. This represents the material, world. So intellect, soul, goes down to matter, inhabits a body, is down here concerned with the physical world. That's where there's actually beauty, because beauty is also connected directly with the one. The one emanates down to intellect, beauty, and beauty from the intellect, the pure, the form of beauty, emanates down to soul, and then down to the material world. So, Helen, the form of beauty, emanates down to Troy. They're going to follow down as souls to material bodies and then they're going to fight in this material world over beauty, and they get lost in this sort of substantial world and get confused with instead of the form itself of beauty, which is going to lead you back up. They get lost down here. So the beautiful is captured by matter and is rescued by mind. Okay. But Helen. Okay. Agamemnon, not too happy. He got killed by his wife. The women, not so good after her, because she gave all women a bad name. Okay. Then who does he talk to? He talks to Achilles. And Achilles, he's like, oh, how you doing, Achilles? Achilles says, look, you're like, hey man, everybody knows how great you are. Like Odysseus tells Achilles this. He's like, Achilles, you're accomplished. You're the best Greek. Like everybody knows you. Everybody knows of you. Like you're the best. You'll be remembered forever. And Achilles says, look, Odysseus, don't try to comfort me with any of that nonsense. If I could go back and redo everything, I would do anything to just be alive again. I would be the lowliest slave, working some menial task, just to be alive again, over being this sort of like hero amongst the dead. So he regrets his journey towards fame. So Odysseus learns two things, the same thing twice, from his mom, his mom, which her name means against fame. She's like, I'm really sad that you left me. I died because of that, because you went to go seek fame, to go seek material fame, right? Fame, opinion. You went to go seek opinion of the masses, which is way low on the divided line, and to seek material gain, riches, wealth reaped from this world, treasures reaped up within this world. He learns twice from his mom and then from Achilles that that's not worth it. So much for that. He also sees Tantalus, who is sort of he can. That's where we get our word tantalizing. He's up to his neck in water and he's thirsty, but whenever he tries to drink, the water goes away. He's hungry. There's a tree with like fruit above him. Every time he tries to grab the tree to eat, it retracts up. So he's in a constant state of like he cannot be satisfied. So that represents seeking worldly pleasures and filling yourself with all these things that are never going to satisfy you. Drink but to never be full, or eat but to never be full. You're always going to be hungry once again. Drink to never be satisfied for your thirst. Sex to try to release that and be done with that. You'll never be done with that. These are just itches that are continually scratchable. They're the leaky sieve in the Gorgias. If you read Plato's Gorgias. So that's Tantalus. He sees Narcissus, who is the guy that fell in love with his own reflection in water. The meaning behind that would be, firstly, getting carried away with concern over reflections and images rather than the true real things, which are up on the divided line, right? they're up here. Yeah, in Nous. So you're down here trying to get up here, but you're just looking down here. Excuse me. This is us. This is the soul. Where you should be looking is up here, but you're looking down here. That's what Narcissus does, and he falls in love with his own reflection. And it's also, once again, to bring it back to our point about souls and water, it's a reflection that's in water. So he's a soul that goes down into material. Once again, he's a soul that goes for the reflection instead of the real thing, and inhabits this sort of body, which is a material form, which is an image or reflection of the real things. Okay. He also sees Sisyphus pushing the rock up the hill, which represents ambition, which is also futile, because it just comes back down again every time, but he just keeps pushing it up, pushing it up, pushing it up. So, the journey to Hades represents the subconscious, I think. And it represents the downfalls and things that can get you trapped in the darkness instead of following the light upwards. It'll get you trapped in darkness. It leads to a sort of entrapment within a sensory life, I guess you would say. And there's warnings of things that'll keep you there. That's what I believe the Hades is an allegory for. But, he also gets wisdom he's getting wisdom from this, within this sort of subconscious, within the darkness of his mind. If we were to look at the Odyssey as a big allegory, which is what this entire graph is about. Because once again, this small graph is what this big graph is. He's going from sense, the world, the cave, alright? This is his internal journey upwards to Ithaca, where he's going to find Penelope, which is philosophy and wisdom, and his father, which is the One. So that's his heavenly home. And he's sailing on a ship, which is representative of, like that, who was it that wrote the poem? The anecdote of the jar on the hill in Tennessee. That's what the ship is. The sea is something that's going to knock you off course and cause you to doubt and lead to all kinds of troubles and distractions and stresses that are going to distract you from your true purpose. Not distraction in a way where you're attracted to it, like maybe the like Circe, or like the lotus eaters, or things like that. It's not a desire in like that sort of sense. It's it's not a desireful distraction. It's a sort of stress which distracts you from this ultimate goal. The stresses of life, things happen, That's what the sea is. And it's constantly knocking Odysseus off course. But that's his journey to Hades. After that, they're going to end up going and being trapped on the island with Helios's cattle. trying to think if there's anything else I really want to say about that. Going into this is coming from. I've bought so many books over the past couple weeks and been reading so many books. This graph is a sort of an extrapolation of Porphyry's writing on the wanderings of Ulysses. There's also, yeah, it's on the wanderings of Ulysses by Porphyry. That's where I'm getting this sort of Platonic reading of the Odyssey from. But, and then just reading Plotinus and Pseudo Dionysius. That's been my big project that I've been working on as of late. And it's been pretty exciting. I really like it. And the Odyssey is, I love it when these ideas can be applied to stories, because these are big allegories. These are big yeah, I guess an allegory or there's a word that I'm looking for that I can't find, but you get the point. They're allegories for bigger things. And that's why the journey motif is such a prevalent, like, kind of motif, but it kind of starts here in the Odyssey. This fellow Manly Hall or whatever said was that the Platonic system, the idea of emanation and regeneration, of coming down from the one and the nous as the soul and being embodied in physicality, in spatial reality, and then trying to regenerate back up, is also present in the story of the prodigal son in the Bible, where the son leaves his father's house to go down into the world, into filth, right? He ends up finding out that it's completely unsatisfactory. He has a good time in there for a while, but then he ends up eating pig slop, right? And then he has to make his journey back up to the one, to the Father. And his Father welcomes him with open arms and has a feast for him. And that's the allegory of our lives. Unless you were to take unless you take more of a Nietzschean outlook on it and just be like, well, all that soul stuff is just a myth anyway. It turns out that, I think Nietzsche even says himself in Beyond Good and Evil, that we've kind of turned it, there's this effect, this Circe effect, which has reduced us to beasts, right? It says, look, all that higher stuff, all that nonsense, that's just fairy tales. It's just men that invent higher things to look to that aren't there, to distract themselves, and to ultimately apply slave morality to those who rule over us here down on this realm of shadows. So we would call that slave morality. Circe effect. And Nietzsche would also say about Platonism that Platonism is Christianity for the elite, and Christianity is Platonism for the masses. Which is, I believe Augustine even talks about that. He even says the reason why Neoplatonism never took off as a religion that was widespread is because you can't be anybody, any stupid person, anybody can get into Christianity. Takes faith in Jesus, plug and chug. But Platonism is a far more rigorous, complicated system which says the same thing, essentially. And Nietzsche is all about quit thinking about some other world. There is nothing to look to. It's all down here. Quit trying to be redeemed because there's nothing to be redeemed from. Love the earth and create life-giving illusions. So take what you will from that. That's why Nietzsche loves aesthetics and art so much. That's this sort of life-giving illusions, because we're, as he says, addicted to meaning. And he says, well, through modern natural science, we found out that all the myths that we used to believe aren't true, so therefore we live in a chaos instead of a ordered cosmos, like you hear about in, if you read the Neoplatonics, they're talking about the cosmos, which is an ordered universe where things make sense. Things have a telos. And Nietzsche says, no, that's all just sort of an interpretation to make sense of things so that we can get things done, kind of, as humans. For whatever reason, we're addicted to meaning. So we have to create and invent our own values. And the truly strong will be able to walk bravely into the meaningless ocean and conquer like Achilles, because that's what's really great. So it's the two sides kind of clashing. You got Nietzsche, you got the Circe effect, and then you got Plato and Christianity, which is, they're just two opposite sides, right? I don't even know why I started talking about Nietzsche. But yeah, life-giving illusions. That's what we need. Like Marvel. Like brutalist architecture. Aesthetics. Aesthetics suck nowadays. That's why everybody's depressed. There's no form of beauty in anything. The form of beauty has been sucked up and dried out. Now we're just surrounded with depression. So we really need some life-giving illusions, guys. If any of you creative people watching can help us out with that, that would be great. For those of us who are too weak for that, we got to go think about the form of the good and Plato. And we got to go think about Jesus. Anyways, that's probably all for today's video. Goodbye.